Los Angeles listeners, here's a heads up. I will be in town August 15th with my friend the chef Dookie Hong. We are doing a Korea World cookbook collaboration dinner with the legendary chef Suzanne Goen at her downtown restaurant Cala Verde. Dinner is $95 and includes a copy of Korea World. To book, you can hit the link in the show notes, and I really hope to see you there.
Cooking is different than running the business of running a restaurant. Like when you think about a lot of other creative fields, it's totally different where you're like, I'm going to be a successful ceramicist. You're still making ceramics. You're like, I'm a successful chef. You haven't touched food in a year.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rothbard. We welcome back our good friend Akira Akuto to the show. Akira is a Los Angeles-based chef and was behind the acclaimed Los Angeles sandwich shop and pastry counter, and so much more, Combi, which closed up shop in early 2023. On this episode, I speak with one of the more clairvoyant voices in the restaurant world. Akira is brutally honest about why a seemingly successful restaurant was anything but on paper. We talk about the difficulties chefs and operators face on a daily basis and why California in particular is a challenging landscape for small business owners alike. We also talk about what he's been up to and the Japanese citrus he's backing in a major way. Akira is always welcome back in our studio, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. Akira Akuto, welcome back to This Is Taste. You're in the studio from LA. I always love when you stop by. How are you, my friend?
Good to see your face.
Yeah, great to see your face. I usually see you in LA. We're usually up in Highland Park having coffee.
You were eating at Quarter Sheets next to me. I didn't say hi, but
that was right.
You looked so busy. You were so in it with Aaron and Hannah, and they were like, "You gonna come say hi?" I was like, "No, he looks busy. He's running off to another thing. I'll catch him later."
I was like in my LA 24-hour bag because I had to go do another thing. I was going off to
Budo Noki.
I went to Budo Noki that trip. I went to the Melrose Wine Bar.
Oh, dude, you're a crazy person.
Stir Crazy. I was at Stir Crazy.
Stir Crazy is great.
Yeah, Stir Crazy is good. So I was literally there because I wanted to see Aaron. Aaron was on the show. Anyways, what's good in LA right now, my man?
I've been going to Lou's Cafe.
Yeah,
a lot. It's so good.
Tell me about it.
It's next to Here's Looking at You, and they do a Taiwanese cafe. So they have a couple Taiwanese dishes. The menu is quite short, and then they do pastries. And the pineapple bun is awesome. So I get a lot of those, but it's gotten a lot of press lately from Michelin Bib. So it's gotten very busy.
Yeah, but
it's awesome.
Yeah.
And otherwise the usual stuff, but I've been getting a lot of soban delivery, which is excellent.
Man, I love that. Soban on delivery, Ganjang Geijan on delivery.
Thank you, Deb.
Deb is the best. Deb was DJ'd the Korea World launch party in LA.
No.
Yeah.
I don't know how she is everywhere.
Dude,
all the time.
Deb is going to be on the show soon. Deb also has like two incredible cars.
Yeah, she's a car head. You should ask her about the BMW M3. She's got a real problem.
Yeah, she's got like those 90s BMWs that are incredible. Okay, so let me ask you, in terms of new restaurants in LA, when you're looking at Los Angeles, are you having the time to go to all the new spots, or are you kind of in your groove? I know you're going to Found Oyster, I'm sure, a bunch.
Actually, I don't go to Found Oyster because Queen Street is right next to my house.
That's your one, yeah.
So I go to Queen Street a lot now early. So like they open at 4. So I go at 4 to 6 or right around there, and it's very easy to get in. They're doing a special menu from 4 to 6, so it's like very easy.
So how do you stay on top of the restaurants? Because I know you want to, but you've got a life that you.
I have a life, and I like to support the restaurants that are in business because you gotta put your money there so they stay in business. But I like to check out new stuff a little bit later in the road to let them get their groove
Agree.
in. I think it's not fair to go early and judge someone when they're getting their systems in place. It's not right.
This is going to be a theme of this conversation, Akira. We're going to talk about sustainability of restaurants financially and how you can support. I think you always have incredible takes and not takes is not the right word, opinions, and really concrete ideas about the future of restaurants and how they remain sustainable. One more general question before we get to that. New York City, you're back in a place you lived. You're back walking the streets of Brooklyn. You're back, feeling the pulse of the city. Like, where are you going first?
I went last night, actually. Well, yesterday I went to Golden Diner.
Yeah.
And I love Sam. We've been friends for a while, and I went on a Monday. Yesterday was Monday, and I went at 12:30, and it was jamming.
Yeah,
like lines, which is good to see.
Yeah.
I had a great meal with a friend, and then I was just wandering around Chinatown, and I would say that I haven't really been around like when TikTok's been like a presence, so it's weird to see like a 2-hour line at like Mele Wat Bakery. You're like, that's definitely a TikTok thing.
Yeah.
Because like you could always go get a pork bun there.
No, but there's definitely
Boba shop next door at 2 hours. It's like that. I have not experienced that in New York. I see it in LA. But I'm going to go to Four Horsemen tonight.
Yeah.
Superiority for lunch. Like the usual stuff. And like I'll try to get to Otway Bakery.
Cool.
There's a new bakery, Paloma Bakery.
Yeah.
I hear it's really good in Greenpoint.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to go there.
Yeah, Paloma's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard some great things about
Right.
it. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
So wanted to have you in. The last time we spoke was the fall of 22. You had two
What?
restaurants, right? You were here in fall 22.
Yeah.
And so we were talking. It's a great conversation. I'm going to link to in the show notes. But since then, there's been changes. You've gone from 2 restaurants to 0 restaurants. First off, just generally, I think a lot of folks know about you from Combi, this restaurant that you founded with Nick Montgomery, and you really. I love the food. But that's not really the whole picture here. Just really, there's a whole aesthetic, there was a whole ethic there that really was enjoyable to visit. And let me ask you, how difficult was it to close those restaurants?
Well, first of all, thank you for supporting.
Yeah.
You're always there when you're in town. I think it was very difficult to close the restaurants. It was very difficult to come to the conclusion to close them, and just trying to hold on as long as possible. That's just like a factor of opening a bigger location in a neighborhood that wasn't quite the right fit. So I think like I tried to explain it when we closed to a bunch of publications, but it I didn't get the full picture out. But I don't think it's like a matter of the business wasn't doing well. It was just like, we have to remember, like, we opened in a building that was supposed to be full of Apple employees. When we opened in October 22, it was empty. And that was, supposed to be the main driver of us being there. We didn't, have to pay to build out our space there, but we had signed that lease in 2019. So that looked good when we signed it, but things didn't work out that way. And we'll talk about more of this stuff, but when you design a space and you finally get it open after 2.5 years, you're kind of tied to it. You can't make changes quickly. And I think if you're, in this country, especially in California, if you are able to pivot and redesign a space and just reopen a new concept quickly, I think you can save a lot more businesses. But, we were married to, like a space we put an ice cream thing in, which, we thought would do well, but it didn't. And, I think we could have taken that out and expanded what we were doing into more of a bakery. Like those things would have been helpful if we were able to do them.
But it was like steering a aircraft carrier at that point. You couldn't make that quick change.
Totally. And you know what? You want to give it enough time to get the data, but you're also like, okay, like if it doesn't work, I want to know, I can do this. It will definitely work, but I'm going to have to now go through another 6 to 8 months of, permitting and et cetera, right? Like that kind of stuff really deters you from making the changes you would need to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, mostly I think the timing was just off. The neighborhood and the fit for the space was off. There's not really a nighttime crowd in Culver City, which
You're talking about Culver City, right?
Yeah,
Culver
yeah.
City is a very different location
Very
from
different.
your East Side Sunset location. So while Culver City is having its struggles, obviously with the pandemic and office workers not being there, it appears from the media, at least when you view Colby, there's lines all the time on
Mhm.
Sunset. You're always busy, but you have to close both. And I guess the broad question is, Akira, do you consider Colby a success, or is that like a difficult assessment given that you had to close these in the media eyes prematurely? I have no idea what a success is myself. I'd like to hear from you, my friend.
I mean, I think I know, having a year and a half to reflect on success. I think we did what we wanted to do, which I know. I think that's a definition of success. No one really kind of made us compromise our product, or we got to pay the people as much as we could and provide benefits, give them very favorable working hours, and make delicious food. But that's not really enough. I think that the topic that I really like to talk about with friends is like, it's not success is not really the question. It's like, how do you define sustainable in a business for a restaurant? I think things get lost when you're like, oh, it's sustainable. You're buying sustainable product. You're making a business that's sustainable for your employees. Like, they have a work-life balance. But I think what gets lost is the owner doesn't have a work-life balance. And when you start out cooking and your skill set is making food that's delicious and making people happy, I think the more quote unquote success you have, you get away from that. And that's a weird thing to kind of process. And you don't have the space to kind of to process that when it's happening. You're just kind of like, I have to do the next thing. I have to learn how to do P&L sheets, Excel, HR, all those things that, now we're more aware of. You try to tell people who are opening, like, hey, listen, like, this is going to come down the pipeline.
I mean, I'll just say the dichotomy here is that, the media story of Colby could not have been better.
Right.
You're on the cover of Bon Appetit magazine. You're one of the 10 best new restaurants in America. You're getting recognized by national publications.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, your local papers and websites are covering you. You're getting hit up by incredible demand of media requests and influencers to come in. So you're having to manage a lot of noise. And I don't think you worked with an agency you worked with Blake.
We worked with Blake McKay for a few months in the beginning. She's super helpful. Just figuring out, like, I think what people don't understand is when you open a business, and you want to do it without a PR team or person. One, it's very expensive. So, luckily Blake's a friend. She helped us out. You have to know, like, who to talk to at the right paper. I think that's like valuable things.
Oh, yeah. No, PR is absolutely valuable. And I guess to close that initial thought, you had all these inbound requests and all this noise, but still, at the end of the day, you had to look at your P&L.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think a lot of people don't quite realize that media attention doesn't quite equal to a P&L that balances. And Akira, let me just ask you, when you're looking at your P&L a year and a half ago, right when you were closing, where was it hurting the most in terms of the places that you felt were uncontrollable that you couldn't rectify?
I would say that's easy. It's labor.
Yeah.
Labor costs in California especially is brutal. And I don't think it's what everyone thinks it is. It's not just your hourly wage or your managerial wages. It's everything on top of that starts adding up quickly. So we've discussed this before a lot. It's let's take like the minimum wage. It's a very simple concept. We're going to raise the minimum wage to X dollars. It's going to go up $1 every year or whatever. It doesn't sound like a big deal. Why don't you want to pay? You're like, no, it's not. Everyone wants to pay as much as possible. That's not the argument. The argument is when you raise the minimum wage $1, it's not $1 because, as you know, like everyone's getting $1 up an hour. That really drives up your workers' comp insurance. It drives up your federal taxes that you pay for the employees as an employer. Everyone before you has wages increase. So now the delivery driver, the farmer who's paying people to work for them. Everything goes up, and you're the last person who's taking that hit. You're trying to pass that on to the customers to recoup that money to pay wages. So it becomes exponentially expensive. And with the other regulations California puts in place, coupled with just the minimum wage, is like they also require a minimum salary. So the tricky thing is, which you don't really know when you're in the middle of running the business every year, is like, okay, $65K minimum around there is not bad, except the requirements that come with that are you have to employ someone. So now the calculation is this person is making $65K. The person who works for them supposedly makes a minimum wage. But if you do the math, that person actually will make more than the salary person an hourly. So then you have to bump up the salary.
You have an HR issue that you have like kind of this like inequality happening with your labor force.
So how do you, as a business, solve that with a very finite amount of money where you're like, okay, I'm not trying to just pay you $65K. I would love to pay you $95K if it was possible. And now I'm going to be forced to pay you at least $75, $80K because of the minimum wage of the person under you. And that, I think, is very difficult for a normal person who doesn't work in restaurants, who's just a customer looking at the prices, to comprehend. Like all those little decisions that happen in a room outside of restaurants in a vacuum that are good ideas in practice lead to very problematic situations.
And lead to $23 sandwiches, which angers people. And I would say rightly so if they aren't educated and they aren't listening to our show and they aren't digging into the real facts, or they don't have a family member who works in restaurants.
Right.
But it's unfair when you start hearing this complaint about a $23, $25 menu item. Cocktails, I think a lot of that's been a really hot button issue. Cocktails are increasing to 22, 23, 24. Though, as an aside, Madison, Wisconsin, Jenna's is still doing drinks like $8, $9. Like great, it's like surprising how some markets can keep cocktails. But I'm saying, and this leads into the idea of like, Akira, how can we as diners think about dining out and think about all the things you just said? That's the first part. And the second part is, how does the government of California in California, or the federal government, help you as an operator more?
I think, one, I've just been a diner for the past year and a half, fortunately. And I have seen the prices increase in California. And objectively, it costs a lot of money to go out to eat. But you can't really complain about the prices because you know that's the price that they have to set to make some kind of profit. And some things don't make a profit. Like, it's a balance across the board. Like, all right, I'm going to take a hit on this item. I'll make more on this money. And I think that's the game that people play. So when people complain about prices or like in conjunction with prices, complaining about anything that you have information to before the fact, like, I'm going to complain about the price. I'm going to complain about the wait. You're like, look, no one's forcing you to wait there. The menu prices are posted. No, you were not surprised. It's not like, I've joked about it. Like, everything should just be market price because the restaurant gets market priced.
No, totally.
Like, you should just have a market price menu, but that's not possible because no one would go there. But I think the prices are there. They're posted. They're everywhere. Like, you should know. Like, this is what you're going to pay. Maybe you get offended if there's service charge. I get all that stuff.
Yeah, the framing can be
totally
challenging.
Get. Yeah, like
services.
If you're not communicating as a restaurant correctly, I could get a customer gets offended. That's fine. But overall, like, no one's making you wait there to eat at a restaurant. There's lots of restaurants. No one's like telling you have to go here and pay $50 for anything.
So I'm hearing, like, as a diner, one thing we can do is like be a little more educated about where you're going, and please, like, check the menu before if you're having a moment where you can't dine out freely and go to any restaurant you want, which is like most people.
Yeah, I think it's important to like take a step back and say, like, look, maybe I shouldn't go to every new restaurant, and maybe I should just go to the places that I like and support them and become a regular there, and I'll get treated better, and I'll be supporting a place that I'll do my best to make sure they're staying in business. Like, I think if people can kind of get back to, like, hey, like I am going to appreciate these restaurants that are on my 10,
Mm-hmm.
places I like to go to. They don't need to go to every new restaurant. And if you're going to a new restaurant when it's new, like it's probably not going to be at its best. Like,
Yeah, that's the one thing I
like,
always keep in mind. So you're speaking to the diner there. I love
yeah.
that. Back to the government.
Okay.
Let's answer that.
So I think to reframe your question a little
Sure.
bit, I think I'm going to include the customer in this conversation. So like we get, when we were open, we get a lot of comments, which I used to make as well. Where it's like, hey, I could get this cheaper in Tokyo. I can get an egg sandwich for blah, 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 X price. I can get a taco in Mexico. I can get something in Paris for cheaper. Okay. I totally get that, except you're not factoring any of the other stuff. My issue with that now is you're not factoring in the government's role in those countries. So like minimum wage is much lower, but in fact, they're providing health insurance and they have a very different insurance model. They have a very different benefits model that, the government is taking a lot of that on. Your taxes are whatever they are, but you have things for that. Also, as I've traveled and talked to other owners, like the hurdles to open businesses are much lower.
Yeah.
So like you get a chance when you go to Paris and you're like, hey, I'm just joking around. I want to open a restaurant. How long is it going to be? And, a bunch of friends that are like, you could get a permit to open a restaurant in 5 days here. Mm-hmm. It's free. You can open whatever hours you want. You can serve whatever you want. That's not the issue. You could build it in a few months. Those hurdles aren't there. So like, okay, like that makes sense. Japan's kind of the same way. Like you can open something in 3 to 4 months, built to spec. Permitting is so you literally go online.
I mean, Tokyo has like 50,000 restaurants,
right?
80,000 restaurants.
You fill out a form, you get the permit, you get beer and wine. You can do whatever you want. Like their thing is, look, if you're going to get people sick or it's not good, people just won't come. Why do we have to regulate that?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So like, I think if you could take some of that here, then the cost to the customer is going to be a lot less. If you're waiting 2 years to open a business,
you're sitting on that bank note as well, and you have to pay that interest, and you're getting like totally screwed.
You've taken investor money, most likely. That's pressure on you to do something with it. You're spending to build out a space, waiting for a process that is not logical. You have no idea when you're going to open, and we've done it twice. The first time is daunting. Like you really don't know what's happening. So if you think you're going to open in 6 months, you've budgeted for that, even though people told you differently. Like, I'm going to be frugal. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be there every day. Like, you're just not going to make it go faster because that's just not the way it's designed. You can hire an expediter. They're also going to tell you, I don't know how long this is going to take, which is a ridiculous thing to hear. So I think if a customer knew that, like, hey, a beer and wine license costs X amount of dollars, but you have no idea when you're going to get it. That's crazy.
Yeah. So I'm hearing less friction. I'm hearing like, let's get out of the way a little bit, public governments. But let me ask you about the minimum wage. Let's circle back to that. And I think this is always going to be a debate. And I don't want this to be a debate, but do you feel the minimum wage is too high?
I don't think the debate is whether the minimum wage is too high. I think it's hard to determine what the minimum wage is.
I love that.
Because
it's great.
Living in California has changed dramatically in the 9 years I've lived there. Maybe when I moved there, it made sense at the wage it was, and it doesn't make sense now. But like, I would argue that the minimum wage is not even enough to really live there in a way you'd probably want to live there. $25 in LA is not going to cover much.
Yeah.
$25 in New York is definitely not going to get you very far. So I don't think the argument is like minimum wage. I think it's more letting businesses kind of decide for themselves what makes sense. Like, I think a lot of the stuff just gets forced down a business's throat, and you're not really ready to deal with it. So I think, like, talking about the point before is just like, look, if you're doing that to businesses, you need to give them easier ways to bring money in.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're taking a business and you as the government are not doing the things you're supposed to do, providing services for the taxes, and you're like, I expect businesses to provide a 401k if you have more than 4 employees, and I expect you to administer this payroll and pay the payroll tax, and I expect you to provide health insurance if you're above these many employees. Like
you got to get the money coming in.
You got to be able to be like, hey, listen, you want to get beer and wine? It costs this much. It's in 10 days. Like that's like
you
Austin,
can't tie them up for 12 months or 16 months, right?
Or like just the unknown. Like it's like it's going to be 12 months. Okay, but then let's make it 12 months instead of like, I have no idea.
Yeah, and like maybe pause some of those requirements, those taxes, those things that you have to pay day one as an operator because you obviously have more than 4 employees before you even open your doors as part of the business.
I think a lot of those things in other countries that are older, they are mature in those respects. Like
you're very diplomatic, calling America a young country.
Yeah. I think
we've been around for a minute, though.
That's the way I would describe it. I mean, like I talk to people who are friends of mine who opened in Mexico City just to kind of ask, and they're like, well, when we opened, like our taxes like are lower. They ramp up over time as you build up your business. Like that makes a lot of sense.
I agree.
Right? Like in LA, you're hit with a bunch of taxes every year the instant you open, no matter what. And like it doesn't make sense.
Do you miss running restaurants right now, Akira?
No.
When you open Combi and like your other restaurants in LA and like working in New York at Franny's and working in New York at other spots, Momofuku, I mean, you're in it. Like you're an active chef. You're like, this was like Combi wasn't like your first thing. Like you'd been doing it and you really.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I opened it when I was kind of old.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, old guy.
You're the one who said it.
Yeah.
But it's like interesting that you're not back in the game because you loved it so much and being there and serving. You really work in the bar, cafe, talking to coffee. I mean, it seems like that was really a big part of your identity and but you don't miss it.
I don't miss the day-to-day operations.
Yeah,
I think like cooking is different than running the business of running a restaurant. I think like when you think about a lot of other creative fields, it's totally different where you're like, I'm going to be a successful ceramicist. You're still making ceramics. Yeah. Like I'm a very successful hairdresser. You're cutting hair. You're like, I'm a successful chef. You haven't touched food in a year. It's like, I have not, like that is not what you get into the game to do. You get into it like, hey, I've trained all this time. I have an original idea that I want to present to the world. I think I'm going to do it this way. I want to create jobs. And then you get into it and you're like, oh, actually, the more jobs you create, you don't get any benefits. And it's a drag. And you're like, why are the people who are taking the risk, who are creating jobs, getting
punished with less benefits? Yeah.
Right? And I'm not saying like business owners should be given slack for some of the people who've done very bad things. But I'm saying like, look, like there should be some balance between what employees are allowed to do legally and what a employer is held accountable for. Like there should be something in the middle where there's some protections for employers, which there don't seem to be. And I don't really understand that.
Yeah, because you've put up the risk and you've certainly employed people and you've helped their lives. But there's often that liability with being the person who signs the checks, right? Who signs the front of the checks and not the back of the checks.
Yeah, and I the ideal model is a co-op model, which I don't know how that operates since everyone has to come to a unanimous decision. But the examples that are daily problems are just like, you're an at-will employee. You can quit anytime you want, but an employer can't really fire you whenever they want without serious documentation. And I feel like that's a little bit weird. Because you can have bad employees. Like we don't really talk about it.
We have a life. Like everyone's worked a job and there's different levels of quality.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like I would say the majority of the people you vet and go through the process of spending time and money to hire the right people, you can do a pretty good job, but there's always going to be a couple people that are not good workers, and that's fine. We can discuss that and have a conversation about it instead of like, everyone should be treated this way. You're like, look, man, some people just need to get fired because they
Yeah.
suck at working.
Yeah, and a straight talk, and that's
You could do it in a respectful way. You don't have to
yeah.
be like
Of course.
professional.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to leave it there. I think we've brought up some really great topics, Akira, and I really always do love your takes and your opinions. Takes is such a I keep saying takes, but it's not takes. It's like thoughtful discourse about keeping restaurants sustainable and speaking both to the chef community and the diners who listen to our show. I think there's obviously going to be both sides to the coin, but you've really been diplomatic here. I want to talk about Yuzuko,
Ooh,
which is really exciting. If you follow you on socials, as you should, you're always posting about Yuzuko, and I'm like, hey man, what's up with Yuzuko? It's a great product. I've had it before, but why are you posting so much?
I am a investor in Yuzuko,
Okay.
seed investor. They four guys figured out a way to import fresh yuzu to America, and Kombi was their first place that used it. We used a lot of it. I really liked it, and I wanted to get to know them, see what else we could do, and we ended up investing. And I think that they are expanding their product line. We've tasted a lot of new things, but I'm going with them this year to just see the farms.
Yeah, where do the farms end, Japan?
So they've gotten some new ones that are north of Kyoto
Mhm.
that are bigger production, still doing slow growth. But these guys have told me that I don't know if you've ever seen a yuzu tree. I have a yuzu tree in my yard now,
Mhm.
and it's a year old, and the thorns are crazy. So like no one really wants to harvest yuzu. It's very painful to try to go get the yuzu, and same as here. There's like younger people just don't want to work in hard jobs in Japan. So the yuzu is a lot of it's just left rotting on the tree. So we're trying to get all that juice because we love it. You love it.
Yeah.
And bring it here and figure out what to do with it. So, I helped them with some ideas of what, we used to do with it at Kombi. I just help make introductions to chefs I think that will like using it. I'm not too connected to bars and drinks, so they got that on lock. But yeah,
You're more in like the baking and the
totally.
cooking
And
community.
yeah, like people I think that will appreciate it. The thing that I like about Yuzuko versus other yuzu juices we've had is like when you open it up, the fragrance is there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first thing you notice. It's like, oh, it actually smells like yuzu juice. It smells fresh. You taste it. It tastes correct. It doesn't taste like this soapy, weird aftertaste. And they are trying to explain to me that that's just the process it gets filtered through. They explain it to me in scientific.
To preserve it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess
It's just like that is the byproduct if you do it the most economical way.
How do you get it to the States? Like, I mean, you're doing this one
So
seasonal
they're
harvest.
filling up shipping containers in Japan,
Yeah.
and the logistics in Japan are very good. So they're working with people over there. I think they're working with some people in the government of Japan, if I'm not mistaken. So a lot of that stuff's taken care of. They go in, check on it, and then it arrives here. And I think you've had it.
Yeah,
It's
it's
great.
great. And I agree. And I think it's got great branding and it's starting to get the chef community. It seems like the kind of CPG product that has a lot of potential. Once the influencers and the chef community start to embrace it, you'll get like more of a consumer end buying it.
It's not because I didn't really understand it at first either. What they were trying to sell me on investing is like, it's not a CPG product. It's the base ingredient for what a lot of CPG products
Right.
are going
It's more
to use, which is
B2B.
very interesting. It would be like, I found a lemon juice source.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I never.
So it's
saw
more
that.
B2B because the way
Mhm.
that you're modeling, I mean, you have like bottles you sell, but the cost is more for business side. It's more for food service side.
Yeah, and they figured it out like, okay, we're gonna need to pivot into 10-liter box.
Yeah.
So they've already got into that. So a lot of the things are going to be great use for restaurant packaging, bigger, cheaper, but like for the home use, they've already got it locked. Like a liter bottle, that'll go far.
Yeah, and you keep it refrigerated, right?
Keep it refrigerated,
Yep.
but you can keep it shelf stable before you open it, and then you have to refrigerate.
How do you cook with it at home?
Me,
Yeah.
I just make drinks with it. every night with just seltzer water.
Yeah.
And some maraschino cherry, like fancy maraschino cherry.
Yeah.
And then I put it in dressings a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wonderful
honestly,
for
like
dressings.
it's great for dressing.
Yeah, wonderful for any kind of lemon substitute for dressings, or for for a nice NA cocktail, or even a booze
Totally.
cocktail.
You're an NA guy.
I'm an NA guy. I like a good youth juice cocktail. I like a good like acidic but bright. It's always important. One more going back to restaurants,
Mm-hmm.
and I always want to get your take. Like, is there like outside of labor and costs, is there another topic that the media is maybe not paying attention to when it comes to the chef world, the restaurant world?
I think it's just I think the media world, because it's not sexy to talk about the government stuff. Like, how are you going to write an article that people really want to read?
Yeah.
It's like that is the stuff that we talk about as restaurant owners, is like you want to educate people without being overbearing, but there's no way to write an article about that's interesting. But it's not a free market. Like, you have to do a lot of stuff that is forced upon you. I think the best analogy I have come up with is you build a ship or like a boat, and that's your restaurant. And your chance at profitability is like how fast it can go. And regulations are like bullets or whatever that poke holes in the boat.
I'm thinking about Spy Hunter, the game Spy Hunter.
Yeah, some of them are above the water line, and some of them are not. Some of them are bigger holes. It slows your boat down. Eventually, you're dead. So
you're sinking.
You're sinking. So I feel like less bullets, less regulations give restaurants a little more chance to get to profitability. So that's what I think about most of the time, and we talk about that a lot with other owners. It's not sexy stuff.
No, but you made it nice there. I like the analogy. I like the metaphor. It's really cool that you can speak so fluently about this stuff. I hope to have you back maybe in less than a year to kind of like check in and see what's going on. Akira, on This Is Taste, we ask guests about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire, fast and furious taste check. Are you ready?
I knew this was going to happen, so I prepared on the train.
You prepared on the train. Well, let's pretend you haven't prepared. It's off the dome. All right, the best fruit. We're going there first.
Oh, because it's June, it's so easy. Andy's Orchard nectarines. I got his first email yesterday, so I can't wait. It's going to be
California fruit.
It's not fair. I mean, have you
it's
seen?
Not fair.
Have I ever shown you the Andy's Orchard emails?
No, send me one.
Oh, dude. They go into deep detail about every variety.
To get in?
No. He just sends out their availability, but every variety that they're bringing to the market on Wednesday is listed in historical detail.
I love that.
So I'll send you the next one.
I love a deep dive via email.
It's wild.
The worst vegetable.
Do you understand spaghetti squash or celeriac? I don't get either of those.
Tough hangs, both. I think celeriac, celery root can be interesting in a puree.
Mm-hmm.
But who wants to make that known except for like fancy chefs?
Have you ever seen celery root puree in California? I have never seen it. I've seen it in New York a couple seasons ago, and in like Germany.
Yeah,
Germany.
Those like 2 Michelin star places in
but
like, the
spaghetti
Bavaria.
squash.
Yeah, let's get into that.
Talk to me about that. What's that about?
Well, first off, it's slimy, so that's gross.
Exactly.
It's bad.
And microwaving it, it seems real nasty.
It seems like a little dated.
And then you fork it out?
Yeah, the forking part.
Oh,
is
no.
nasty. All right, the best dessert.
I would say great fior di latte gelato and maybe a warm brownie with vanilla ice cream on the side.
Into that. Best fior di latte gelato I've ever had in my life. I've been blessed to go to Italy a bunch of times. In Tel Aviv. Incredible.
Really? Which place?
Art.
In Tel Aviv?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
LARTE or ARTE as an acronym.
If you've continued to listen this far, Matt's just dropping.
I'm just dropping gelato knowledge because I'm just trying to hype up this spot. Okay, your favorite American fast food chain?
Oh, I'm gonna say Goop Kitchen, which doesn't count at all. But
wait, have you been?
I eat Goop Kitchen a lot.
I'm being open-minded.
Honestly. Man. Kim, who is the culinary director, is Kim?
No, I'm like.
So Kim,
tell me more.
Kim Floresca, good buddy.
Yeah.
She used to run a couple small restaurants like Meadowood and
Little Guys.
She worked at El Bouilli, Mugarit, like paid as like a cook.
Got the higher,
the
higher email.
And, French Laundry, little places.
Little spots.
She runs their culinary team.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. Like, the food is so good. And I know it's a Gwyneth thing, but it's delicious. It's great.
I mean, I'm post like making fun of or snarking anybody in food. Frankly, I Guy Fieri, like, come on the show. Like, let's talk.
I consider that fast food, but if you are like talking like American real stuff, I am not the guy. But I would say if I had to, I was on a road trip. Popeye's fried chicken sandwich.
Yeah, probably hits every.
It's so good.
Every third guest is hitting Popeyes. Your favorite cookbook of all time?
Oh, I just listened to Aaron's pod.
Yeah,
and I am
Lindell.
Also, I am same like Suzanne's Sunday Suppers. Really, I looked through that book so many times when I wasn't in California, and it was my favorite book. It's great. And
Sunday Suppers.
Okay. And Suzanne Golan is legend. And obviously Brooks is
Fancy Desserts.
It's one of the funniest reads.
Yeah, it is. I love that book a lot. It was a great call. Yeah, I think I was texting Jordan Oken about it, and I was like, is Susan Golan like the hardest working chef in LA?
Maybe.
I feel like just seeing I've been on some emails. We're doing an event with her in August for our book, but I just think like her presence in LA, she's like underrated.
I don't think she doesn't have to work at this point, but she's out there.
Absolutely not. No, she's like so hands-on, and like the quality of the product is great. Great cookbook too. So we're back to that.
Yep.
Okay, these are some big questions, but I want you to answer them. Your favorite New York City restaurant right now?
I hate you. Superiority Burger and Four Horsemen.
No, it's true.
I mean, I stick to what I like.
You stick to what you like. I'm the same way. Your favorite LA restaurant right now?
Quarter Sheets.
Yeah.
I go there every Friday. Every day, every week. Antico Nuovo. I love Chad. I love his food. We also have this. We also work out together.
Oh, sick! What are you doing? Are you doing?
No. We have a trainer. We see, and I just make fun of him.
Yeah.
And the trainers ask me like about Chad, and I'm like, it's really hard if you own a restaurant and people are bringing you gelato and pasta to taste all day.
No.
It's really hard. And Tsubaki would be the other one I would say go to.
I love these calls. I love these calls. Favorite city outside America to visit for food?
Paris and Tokyo, hands down.
Yeah.
Over and over again.
London
was also great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those three.
You're hitting some biggies. A couple more. A cuisine you would like to learn more about?
Not a cuisine, but recently I've thought about maybe learning about baking sourdough bread. Mm-hmm. I've never done it.
Really?
Yeah, never done it.
You're Mr. Laminated dough,
I'm probably 4, 5, 6 years behind that COVID movement.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe I can go back into a COVID hibernation and just work on bread.
I think that would be cool. You should check out my guy Mauricio Leo at The Perfect Loaf.
Okay.
Really
Is that a website? Or?
It's a website and a cookbook series.
And it's just like he has all the details on...
Yeah. No, and it's really, really amazing work. Like, I mean, there's lots of sourdough. Peter Reinhardt, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I have all the books.
You got the
I just
books,
never opened them.
No, check out Perfect Loaf. It's a great resource for sourdough baking in particular. Last one, your favorite sandwich?
Ooh, R.I.P. Combi omelet with combi bread. That's my favorite of all time. But currently, I eat a lot of the chopped cheese at Bodega Park.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned those guys.
I eat all the sandwiches there, but I eat the chopped cheese.
The pork bulgogi, the jig bokum sandwich is really with the thick onions and the mayonnaise. I know it's in the cookbook.
It's delicious.
It's a great place. I'm glad you covered it. Akira Akuto, thank you so much for joining Taste. You are always welcome back.
Thank you so much, Matt.
This is Taste is hosted by Eliza Abarbanel and me, Matt Rodbard. The show is produced by Shalia Harris and Pat Stango and edited by Clayton Gumbert. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter for updates on all cool things that are happening.